Welcome to class. I'm Trevor, and I post D&D videos every week on Wednesday. In this video, I wanted to talk about a random table that I created that was inspired by one of the adventures in Candlekeep Mysteries. Specifically, the adventure in question is the Book of Cylinders. I talked about it in my review, which I'll link up here. Now, before I get into the table that I created, I did want to address something that has come up since my initial review, specifically about Book of Cylinders. The author of Book of Cylinders, Graham Barber, or Panzerlion on Twitter, has created a Twitter thread and a couple of blog posts on his blog explaining his frustrations and discontent with how his original ideas for the adventure were published versus what he had actually planned. I'm going to abbreviate it as best I can, although I'll put links to the actual blog posts in the description of this video. But in his original kind of idea for this adventure, he wanted to kind of decouple the yuan-ti from the stereotypical evil for evil's sake. And he wanted to start, at least make an attempt at decolonizing D&D. And he expresses some concern that that was through the editing process removed from the adventure that was published in the book. That doesn't have anything to do directly with the table that I'm going to be talking about in this video, but I did think it was worth mentioning because this adventure did inspire the table that I created. For Book of Cylinders specifically, it was the adventure in Candlekeep Mysteries that was the most atypical book. It's not what I was expecting when I had an adventure, or when I bought an adventure that was all different books or plot hooks involving books. So what I did is I created a D8 table that are all examples of different styles of book. You can see that there are 8 different options, as it is a D8 table, ranging from a stone column or columns with winding language written around it, kind of like a Rosetta Stone. That was at least my thought process. A room full of cave paintings that tell stories essentially from left to right throughout this cave. An animated scroll that shares an oral story when a command word is spoken to honor kind of the oral tradition. A pen that when uncapped and touched to a scroll pours out a graphic novel. And you can lift up the scroll and kind of scoop it back into the pen. A room with a major image that enacts a play at certain intervals, or maybe as long as people are watching. A traveling poet with a story told through the oral tradition or a simulacra of that poet. And you could do this either way, right? Like a poet themselves could show up at the library to share this story, or it could be a recording, something like that. It is somewhat similar to number 3, but a little bit different because it's not a scroll itself, right? Number 7, a night sky that shimmers, dances, and changes to enact a story in some capacity. And that story can be read with a star chart. This one maybe is the most obscure. And then number 8 is a dance or a performance. So this is not acting, but well, I guess in essence, it's similar, right? It is not a performance with dialogue, but instead it is a dance that tells a story. I thought that this was an interesting take, and I wanted to include this table because I love the Candlekeep book, as my review hopefully got across. And I wanted to build off of it, right? And I'm going to do other videos of that same vein, but I think that we have an expectation for what books are, and I think that that's limited. I think that a library could have audiobooks or graphic novels, things that are maybe not by most people considered books, but I think they certainly are, or they're at least similar enough that they can be used as plot hooks in the same way as the tomes or the kind of cliche books in Candlekeep Adventures could be used. What I'm going to do is I'm going to randomly generate a number 1 to 8, and I'll use that number as kind of my jumping off point, and I'm just going to improv. I don't have this part written down on my script. So I rolled a 4 on my D8, and that's the graphic novel book. For that kind of book, you could do something as simple as a children's story. So it's a picture book, and when you touch it to the scroll, there are images of maybe a story to ease children back to sleep. But potentially, with this book, when you open it up, it casts a curse on the PCs and they get drowsy and they have to figure out who is the original creator of the book before they fall asleep. Or maybe as they sleep for longer and they need to find someone to remove this curse and find someone to kind of help them escape from this situation. And that's just an option, right? It could even be a graphic novel that's more like a superhero story. So it could be a tale of dashing adventurers that are doing these things. And maybe instead of it being quite a plot hook, like a lot of the ones in Candlekeep are, maybe this one just gives a boon to the adventurers. They read this story and they're inspired by the deeds of these heroes in this story. And they could even find that one of these heroes under an alias is the one who dropped this pen off at the library that had the graphic novel stored inside of it. Maybe that's a little bit arrogant of that original hero, but I think it's cool all the same, right? So that was just one option. And hopefully this small D8 table is useful in your campaigns, especially if you're doing something related to Candlekeep or want to homebrew based off of the framework that's available in Candlekeep. And even if it's not, it's just a fun way to kind of think about the world, and D&D included, a little bit differently. So as always, be safe, make smart life choices.